Can state governments snatch money from Hindu temples and give to mosques, churches, scholarships, disaster relief funds, welfare schemes, or anything else? This is a controversy that keeps popping up every year in different states, in different forms. Let me explain. Let Me Explain is a weekly show where I take a deep look at issues and controversies and go beyond the obvious. Catch a new episode every Friday. And as we keep reminding you, become a TNM subscriber. Get access to all our paywall content. You get to come to our events, and you can also come to our edit meetings and interact with our team. And tell me what you think of my show. From the Vishwa Hindu Parishad to Jaggi Vasudev, from small Hindu groups to even the BJP. They all keep raising the issue of government control over Hindu temples. Every year, the Free Temple campaign takes a new form in one state or the other. The state regulating temples is not new, but what we need to understand is exactly how much of a role the government plays in controlling these temples. So let's get down to the big question. Can state governments snatch money from Hindu temples and give it away to, say, churches or mosques? Short answer, no. Long answer, states have different laws, but all these laws are clear on what the money collected from the endowment departments can be used for. And they're also clear that they cannot be diverted to anything else. First, let's understand that the endowment laws do not cover every single temple in the state. It's around 24% of temples in Andhra Pradesh, and in Karnataka, it's just around 19%. Under the endowment laws, these are the things that governments can do. Take care of administration, take care of the upkeep of the temples, conduct audits to ensure that there's no wrongdoing with the money that people put into hundis or give as donations. And for this purpose, temples pay the government a certain percentage of their revenue. All of these laws stipulate that the money collected by a temple cannot be used for any other purpose, not even to donate to the CM Relief Fund during a pandemic. Is this a good thing? Is this not so great? I want to know what you think, so drop your comments in the comment section below. Let's look at how and why these endowment laws came into being in the first place. India had very grand and rich temples. Kings built them and endowed them. When monarchy ended and East India Company started ruling, many temples were taken over by private individuals. After complaints of misuse, temples were regulated from 1810 onwards. The first such law was the Madras Hindu Religious Endowments Act of 1925 and then 1926 of the Madras Presidency. The Justice Party that was in power brought the act to regularize the management of temples because there were a lot of cases of corruption. This act applied to all temples excluding those that were under the British administration and those that already had a direct line of inheritance. In Karnataka, the term used for endowment is mujrai. The word has its origins in Persian and was colloquially used to mean allowances for religious purposes. Interestingly, it was under Tipu Sultan, yes, the same Tipu who's so often called anti-Hindu, that a formal system of states granting land and money to temples and maintaining an account of this was started. The ledger was then called the Tastik Pattis. So why are only Hindu temples regularized by the government? What about churches and mosques? During this period, Protestant churches in India were being nationalized, and the government was allowed to make rules for churches under the Indian Church Act, which was passed in 1927. The administration of churches was passed on from the Church of England to the Church of India at the time. This act was repealed in 1960. The Catholic churches were directly controlled by the Vatican. Except for the registration of land and activities that come under trust, these churches had a fair amount of autonomy. Mosques were administered by the Jamaat, which were democratically elected by themselves, and then there was the Waqf. In 1995, the properties that come under the Waqf board were regulated by the government. Essentially, the focus was mainly on temples in Madras Presidency because there were several complaints of corruption, and many of these temples were extremely rich. The Madras Presidency law changed under the government of Tamil Nadu in 1959, and soon many other states in India also had their own laws for management of temples. Like in Kerala, there were 5 Devaswam Acts, and undivided Andhra Pradesh too had similar laws. What do you think of this idea? Drop your comments. The main job of the endowment department across the states is governing the administration of the temple. They appoint trustees to the temple committees, they conduct audits of the temple finances, and they also appoint an administrator who oversees the functioning of the temple. In some states, they also oversee the selling of prasadam, that is the offering, and also the lease of shops inside the temple premises. Let's look at specific states now. 38,000 temples in Tamil Nadu come under the Tamil Nadu Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Department, or the HRNCE. Depending on the income of the temple, 1.5 to 12% of the temple's annual income is contributed to the HRNCE department. The rich temples pay more than the poor temples. The Tamil Nadu law is clear on one thing. The funds collected are to be used only for the running of the endowment department. In some cases, if a temple is being shut down, for instance, the remaining funds can be used for hospitals for pilgrims or donated to other poor temples. There's also the Common Good Fund, which accepts voluntary donations. I repeat, voluntary donations from temples or from individuals. Even this fund cannot be used for any other purpose other than maintaining poor temples. Andhra Pradesh has almost 7,800 temples under the endowment department, though the state has over 32,000 temples. Temples with income more than 2 lakhs per year have to pay 18.5% of it to the government. Temples with more than 20 lakhs per year income must pay 21.5% to the government. The Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, that has an annual income of more than 4,500 crores, has to pay 50 crores every year to the government. Like Tamil Nadu, Andhra also has a Common Good Fund, which is used for maintenance and renovation of poorer temples, for establishing Veda Pathashalas, and for construction of new temples and Kalyana Mandapas. The state also has Common Good Fund for all other charitable and religious institutions as well. In Karnataka, over 34,500 temples come under the Mujrai department, that is the term for the endowment department. Of the 1,80,000 temples in the state, only 19% come under the state-run Mujrai department. Depending on the temple's income, they contribute either 5 or 10% to the common pool, which is then used to maintain smaller temples with less income. Temples with income of more than 25 lakhs give 10% of their annual income to the common pool. Temples with income between 5 to 25 lakhs give 5% to the common pool, whereas temples with less than 5 lakhs income make no contribution at all. Expenses like salaries, daily expenditure, electricity and water bills, renovation of smaller temples which don't have enough funds to sustain come from this common pool. The salaries of the Mujrai department employees also come from this pool. What do these employees do? They audit the temple ledgers, distribution of funds to low-income temples, organizing facilities including food and lodging for pilgrims, etc. There are around 100 dargahs in Karnataka that come under the Mujrai department, but the money collected from these temples cannot be used for the upkeep of these dargahs. So now tell me what you think of BJP's repeated allegations, even recently, that money from temples is being diverted by the state government to minority institutions. So coming back to our original question, no, the government does not play communal Robin Hoods. They don't take money from Hindu temples and give to churches or mosques. Nor do they use this money for any other welfare schemes. In the rare case that a government has tried to use the temple money for public purposes, Like during the COVID-19 pandemic, the courts have stepped in and have struck down these actions as illegal. The endowment laws are not perfect. There are many problems with the current endowment system for temples. Let's take a look at what some of them are. The first one is corruption. Even though one of the main reasons for the endowment departments to come into being was to minimize financial misappropriation, involvement of government officials has led to corruption in many cases. For example, in April 2022, the Bengaluru police arrested an assistant commissioner with the endowments department for siphoning off 25 lakh rupees from the Mujrai department account. There have been multiple complaints from all states of temples being ignored, money being siphoned off, etc. In states like Andhra Pradesh, where even small temples have to contribute 18.5% of their annual income to the endowment department, critics have argued that it imposes a huge burden on their finances. The Andhra High Court in 2022 asked for temples with income less than 2 lakhs to be exempted from this contribution. Although the government is not directly involved in the management of temples, they get to appoint a certain number of trustees. One criticism that's often heard is that the government indirectly takes control over the running of temples by putting its own people in the committees and trusts. And of course, the criticism that churches and mosques have been exempted from regulation by the government, at least not as much as the Hindu temples have been. There have been multiple attempts by state governments to remedy this in the past. For example, the Kerala Church Properties and Institutions Trust Bill that was proposed by the former Law Reforms Commission. This was meant to address the complex issues stemming from the handling, or rather mishandling, of extensive land and properties controlled and owned by Christian churches and their leaders. But because of political pressure, this has been in cold storage for many years. But many within the Christian community have been clamoring for this regulation. Another such example is the Tamil Nadu government's proposed Tamil Nadu Public Trust Bill of 2020 that was tabled by the then AIADMK government. This bill had proposed a level playing field for all trusts, and it hoped to curb malpractice by making government scrutiny mandatory. But this could not be passed. But the DMK that is in power right now has also proposed a similar law in its manifesto. But the issue here is this: when there's a government that favors majoritarianism and has been playing fast and loose with secularism itself, there is a valid fear that any law brought in now will be to subjugate and not reform. That's it from me for this week. Do tell me what you thought of this episode, what you liked and what you didn't like. And do not forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, especially those WhatsApp groups where you've seen false news being spread in this regard. Ahead of the Lok Sabha elections, we have set up a joint fund with News Laundry. I request you to go to our page and take a look at the various campaigns that we have started. You can see what interests you and contribute accordingly. Thank you for watching this episode. Make sure you come back next Friday for a new one.